I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Stayed most of my 18 years in a rural area, and 4 kids, mom and dad. But biological father was in the Army. My uncles were in the Marines, which had a great influence on me in later years. My uncle came back from Korea wounded the last day of the fight for Seoul, and I saw him in his dress blues, and it kind of ruined me, and then went forward from there.
Wow. So what year did you decide to sign up?
Right out of high school, in 1967. I signed up in June, and I went to boot camp at San Diego because I was on the western side of the Mississippi River. Mm-hmm. And I spent 8 weeks there. 8 weeks. At the time, was a lot of things were going on. They pushed us to boot camp pretty quickly. And then I went to radio school. I became a radio operator, carried a radio on my back in Vietnam.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So once you're done with boot camp, do you know in boot camp that you're going to be going to Vietnam at some point, or is it at that time it's kind of up in the air?
When we finished boot camp, they give us our orders.
Okay.
And at that time, being from Iowa, I had pretty clear speech. Not so much now. But I remember getting my orders as 2531, you'll be a radio operator. You'll be carrying a 75-pound radio on your back. I weighed 133 pounds.
Good Lord.
And you'll be going Fleet Marine Force. You will be going to Vietnam. They told us right
okay.
at boot camp, yeah, we'd be going.
All right. So what was your first interaction, I guess? They drop you off in Vietnam? I mean, are you with a group at that point?
No, sadly, and this is what a lot of us talk about, Vietnam vets. World War I and World War II, you trained with your guys. You trained with your squads, your fire teams, your platoons, your companies. But in Vietnam, it was fractured, and we literally went over there as individuals and never saw, except for very few situations, we ever saw any of the guys we were in boot camp with again.
Right.
Now, how do you think you were selected for the radio part of it? I mean, you said you were kind of light, but you got to carry a 75-pound radio with you. How do you think you got selected for that?
Well, it was a clear speech. But I was always, as a farm boy, I was a hard worker. I've always worked out and pretty good care of myself. But
how much training did you get on the radio before you had to go to Vietnam?
Actually, quite a bit.
Okay.
We started out with what they call bricks, which are PR6s, and little handheld bricks. And then we went to the 25, which was primarily what we carried. Then land to air was a PRC 47. And we actually got in the TSC 15 vans where we could skip with ham radio operators all over the world. We learned to operate those. But the entire time I was there, all I had was the 25 and the 47.
So how long are you there before you start? Do you end up in a combat zone, I'm imagining?
Well, I got into Da Nang, and there's this big board of Vietnam, and it's broken up in corps. And I Corps is the most heavily fought area up on the DMZ. And this guy, I guess he thought it was funny, said, well, you're clear down here. The farther you go north, the worse it's going to be for you. And he said, you're right up there on the DMZ. Good luck, buddy.
Oh, wow.
So I flew up, and I got out at Dong Ha and was assigned to 4th Battalion, 12th Marines. And I spent the majority of my time on fire bases up on the DMZ. We moved almost monthly in support. And we fired a 155 self-propelled howitzer. And you just don't get to be a radio operator. You've got to work the guns, too. Mm-hmm. You got to put fuses on those 92-pound rounds.
Wow.
You got to throw them up in the chamber, the breech, put the powder charge behind them, close the fire and lock, put the primer in there. Everybody does that because during those massive fire missions, people start passing out. The cordite powder that comes from those artillery rounds are like pellets, and they're basically black powder. And after you ingest enough of that smoke, you can see the guys starting to coming through their nose, and as they breathe, it's all coming out of their lungs.
Oh, wow.
You pull somebody out, put somebody else in there.
I never knew that. I see firing of howitzers all the time. You just see it on video. I never thought about the inhalation of the...
Well, you've got two kinds of a howitzer. You've got a towed howitzer And the self-propelled looks like a tank with a big barrel and a big flash suppressor on the end of it. And at nighttime, you don't want to be seen. So you're working off of glow lights inside, not the kind you're talking about, but some other ones we had. And you might fire 25, 30 rounds, get a 2-minute break, and another fire mission comes up, and you're back in it again. And yeah, it was pretty challenging for a 133-pound guy. It was.
Wow.
I mean,
and what? 18 years old? 19?
Yeah.
19 for me.
Oh my God.
I'm sitting here thinking, like, it's how many years ago has this been? 40? 50?
Yeah.
And yet you're sitting here talking about how you loaded it like it happened last night. I mean, it's amazing to me just all the things you remember.
You remember things that if you forget them, get you killed.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I went over and I was embedded in Iraq with Special Forces, we used, of course, the phonetic alphabet. And they asked me, did I know it? And I could recite it backwards, forwards. I just can't forget it.
Wow.
And those are the types of things you learn. And if you don't do those things, somebody gets killed.
Yeah.
So you train to live.
When you're at the howitzer like that, and you said you also were radio and you had to help fire it, my question is the radio one way? I mean, what I'm saying is, are you giving commands, or are you also listening to help fire the howitzer in the right spot? Or is that what does the radio guy do?
The radio guy in that situation is strictly in the gun.
Okay.
He's got nothing to do with the Fire Direction Center, which is underground in bunkers. We live like hobbits up there. In your Fire Direction Center, the fire mission comes in from the units that want the support. And once that comes in, it comes in basically with their nature of target and azimuth, what you're going after, November Victor Alpha in the open, VC, whatever. And then you decide what you want in adjustment, whether it's a 200-meter burst of white phosphorus, what you want for effect, which is an HE with surface impact, or you want a 30-meter burst over the top of the tree line. Once that all comes up, then the Fire Direction Center calculates exactly based upon the grid that you receive from the man in the field how to set the elevation of the quadrant on the weapon systems.
Wow.
And
can you see what you're firing at, or is it too far away that you don't even know?
very seldom. We fired direct fire several times. We got beat pretty bad at the rock pile by a howitzer, a PAC 75 howitzer. We ended up knocking it out with an F4 Phantom, naped it. But he would roll that thing. Well, 5 of them would roll it out, and they would pound us. But because the entrance to the cave was not on our gun target line, we couldn't shoot into it, but we wanted to make them miserable.
Yeah.
So we'd shoot back at it,
Yeah.
But places like Quezon, I was there at the very end. It wasn't nearly as bad as the beginning. But those guys they went through it. They were sleeping up underneath their howitzer. And because of so much incoming, 1,200, 1,400 rounds.
Oh, wow.
And the enemy's just pounding them. And so they ended up shooting a lot of the barrels out of 4th Battalion, 12th Marines, 155 self-propels. They took the flash suppressors off them, or the muzzle brake, as they called it. They went and got a bucket of eye bolts. They took the eye bolts off, and we unscrew them off the rounds to put the fuse in, poured them in there, and put a light green bag charge in them, shot them back in the jungle. About 3-pound eye bolts coming.
Wow.
Hey.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something.
So, how long was your? Did you have multiple tours or just one?
Well, I had 2 tours, and after about 7 or 8 months, I was no longer the new guy, and I wasn't eating the ham and lima beans. I was eating the chicken and noodles. But that taste is something we'll talk about when we're not on the air. And I became I got combat merit choice, promoted to corporal, and it was different. But some of the realities were still there. Things like everybody has to take their chances. And as an example, when the enemy would fire a round in on us, we start taking a lot of rounds. We want to find out where the enemy's at. Well, we have nobody in the sky to see where they're shooting. So one lone Marine, and I've done this several times, it's not fun. You run out with a broomstick and a protractor. You pin that to the side of that broomstick so it'll swivel. What you do is you look at the spray from the shrapnel and you find the center. And that's your direction.
Wow.
Of fire.
Unbelievable.
And then you read the mark on the protractor And I write it on the back of my hand. So if I go down, they can at least have my hand to go by. And you go in the underground bunker, and they're able to coordinate those two very simple things, your direction with a lensatic compass and the protractor on the stick, and they can fire counter battery back on the enemy.
Now, did you learn that from boot camp? Did you learn that from the States, or is that just on the fly that somebody
I learned it
at the site?
They did it when there was no income and showed me how to do it.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, Meacham, crater analysis. I said, oh, Lord. Because those rounds come in, and they're no joke. That's we lost quite a few guys. Well,
oh, man.
We lost quite a few guys to incoming rounds.
And the bravery, just the bravery, man. Good grief.
But we all take our chances,
Yeah.
All of us do.
Wow. So the second tour back, was it as, so I guess you're there for 7 months. Did you rotate out?
13 months.
Oh, so you were there for 13.
Yeah.
That was the first tour?
First tour. Second tour, I was there for 11. They gave me a choice to either stay and train the ARVNs, the Army Republic of Vietnam, or go home with the Marines. And I wasn't about to stay with the ARVNs. So I went home. But my first tour, I got injured. We were in the middle of a fire mission, and I caught the blast of a howitzer in my left ear at the same time we were getting incoming rounds. Mm-hmm. Well, all I remember is waking up and looking around, and I was laying on the ground, and I went in the underground bunker of the Fire Direction Center and just passed out. Mm. Well, I laid there in my bunk for 2 days underground because we had no Hueys, no medevacs coming in. And it had blown my tympanic membrane, and my semicircular canals had been torn out. And so they medevaced me out to USS Sanctuary. I was out there, I think, 56 days. And I love the Navy. I love the Army. I love them all. All of them have had a profound impact on my life. And these Navy corpsmen just worked over me, man.
Wow.
They filled my teeth. They made new glasses for me. They make sure my IVs were constantly going in so the infection could come out. My face was all swollen up from the infection. They wheeled me down to the mess hall in the bottom of this, and literally, except for Christmas and Thanksgiving, we ate sea rations. We weren't in Da Nang. We weren't in Dong Ha. We ate sea rations. Mm-hmm. So I got to go in the belly of that ship, and I got to have cold milk, pork chops, and beef. And I said, this is heaven.
Oh, man. That's amazing.
It's the things that we've noticed when we've been doing these interviews a lot that they speak of is just finally getting to eat something.
A warm meal
right.
was incredible. Yeah.
Well, the Marine Corps got part of its priorities right. The part they got is two beers a day. So if you were out someplace for 4 days, you better come back. And there better be 8 beers there. Somebody's probably going to bleed. But the rest of the time we drank, and I'm not joking, I can't stand the stuff today, lime green Kool-Aid.
Oh, okay.
And it was warm. We didn't have ice.
Yeah.
And we put our beers in the creeks to keep them cool in net bags and stuff. Mm. But it was different. There was no table set for us up there. Mm. Indifference in Iraq, when I went up to Talifar with my Special Forces team, 13-15, I said, we're going to eat MREs up here. They had an aircraft hangar, and we put 16-foot T-barriers around us because this was not a good place. This is right at the Syrian border. And we did our target package operations from there. And this guy comes up to me and he said, I'm Dave Garcia. He said, I'm the cook. I said, okay. What do you got to cook? He said, I've got 2 tractor and trailers coming up. One of them has all of my stoves and my cooking equipment. The rest of it's full of food. He said, what do you want for breakfast? I said, what do you mean what I want for breakfast? So I realized that I should have joined the Army.
Now, let me ask you back to when you were getting worked on and you had gotten a blast and had to be under your howitzer. Was that at the end of your run, or did you have to go back?
That was about 8 months into my first tour.
Wow.
And they shot me right back.
And you go right back to what you were doing?
Right back to it, yeah.
Now, are you regretting that, or you can't wait to get back with your guys and do it and keep going at it?
I regretted the fact that we were drinking ice cold milk. But also, it's kind of like that team concept. You're worried about them.
Yeah.
While I was gone, Santiago, one of our guns took a direct hit. Mm. And we had 4 big round powder bags, and they caught fire. When they burned white hot. And he got burned up dragging one of the guys out of there. So it really bothered me because I liked him a whole lot. He's really, really a nice guy.
Yeah.
And then we went up to Camp Carroll. We took our battery up there, and then one day there were 4 radio operators. It was Dave Bilberry, Michael Ivory, and Philip Inman and myself. Philip and Michael were killed by the same artillery round, just blew them all to pieces. And then Dave came running across the ground. I was in a fighting hole, and he kept falling down, and I realized he had taken a piece of shrapnel through his back and collarbone. So I had to put him in the fighting hole with me, put a dressing on him, and then wait for the artillery attack to abate and get him over to the underground bunker because he lost a lot of blood. And, that was just one day, and now we're down to 1 radio operator.
Wow.
This guy. But it was, it's fascinating to me how life works sometimes. Because when I went to the wall for the first time, I searched for their names, obviously. And I can't remember. I know it's on the west side. It might be 23, might be 33. But the wall is set up based upon date of death and then alphabetized. Well, Michael, Ivory, and Philip Inman. Both their names begin with I. And they died side by side, and they're side by side on the wall.
Oh, man, that gave me chills.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I actually spoke to Philip's sister. She had called me, and actually Dave Bilberry, who got wounded, his mother, and he called me. And so things work out sometimes.
Yeah.
So you finished your first and second tour of Vietnam, and then you come back. What's after that? What does life look like for you then?
Well, I wanted to get as far away from the military as I possibly could. And I don't know why, because I've always loved the Marine Corps. I love it today. But just so much turmoil up in D.C. And when I came back, they stationed me at Quantico, and the first thing we do is in May of 71 is we get on the bridges. And that was during the time that the revolutionaries had decided to meet in D.C. and go through downtown D.C. coming out of Georgetown and set cars on fire and throw trash cans through windows. So next thing I know, my job was to do physical conditioning for OCS candidates, and all our leaves were canceled, and 15,000 Marines got in cattle cars. We went up to Fort Belvoir, and next morning we were waiting on those bridges for them. There were 250 of us armed with M16s, bayonets, live ammo, and there were about 8,000 of them trying to cross the bridge.
Good Lord.
And I remember my captain told them, cease and desist, this illegal activity, this bridge is being held by the Marines, you're not going to cross. Disband. Their answer was to throw a gas grenade on us. Well, we eat gas. I mean, that's not a big thing for the Marines.
Yeah.
And then we went to order arms, fix bayonets, port arms, a magazine, and 20 rounds, lock and load. Forward to march, ready, engage. And they weren't so brave then. We pushed them down Georgetown Avenue to where the Banana Republic is now. And we had them blocked off with Metro and had them blocked off with D.C. The Maryland State Police. We funneled them right over into a 15-foot wooden wall that went 200 or 300 yards, and that's what the rest of 15,000 Marines were waiting for.
I don't know the history. I don't know this story. The history.
it's crazy.
So who are the people that you're funneling? Who are the revolutionaries?
They are these.
The Americans?
Oh yeah, they're absolutely just
anarchists.
They're against the government.
Oh, okay.
They're absolutely against the military.
Wow.
And I've always felt like a lot of that was because they just didn't stand up and go to war.
Yeah.
And they've tried to convince themselves that
Would this be like Jane Fonda? Was
Something
that similar
along
to
those
that?
lines of the protest.
It would be that.
Yeah.
These were all,
Guaranteed.
they met in Chicago, met in L.A., I'm sorry. And then they met in Chicago, and then the final meeting was here in D.C., and they're going to cause much turmoil. There's actually a picture of them on the White House steps mooning.
So for you, fighting for our country, and now you're fighting our country, that had to be tough. I mean, you're our own citizens.
Well, it is, but I kind of felt like that what they were doing was, and I firmly believe this, when they got together, the more they pounded each other on the back, the braver they became.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to fight. And my least, a lot of them came from my least favorite college in the world, Berkeley.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, boo, Berkeley. And they came up there, and they really thought they were tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't know tough,
Right.
That's right.
and they found out real quick. So anyway, yeah, that answers that question, I guess.
So you after that, how long before you're now out and you're not?
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half.
I had the best job. I went over and ran with that little 25-pound radio. I'm sorry, 75-pound radio, but now I weigh 155 pounds. And I ran 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 miles with that on the hill trails with OCS candidates trying to catch me.
Wow.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
It to me was probably one of the funnest things I've ever done.
So Brian doesn't know this, but I went to OCS training in Quantico, and if you were training OCS candidates, you were a badass, and that sounds like you are anyway. But I was always impressed. They always brought the baddest dudes for us to go with, and I was like, these are the toughest guys I've ever seen.
I enjoyed it so much because I stayed in the gym. I've always lifted. I've always ran. I was a long distance runner for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And you've met Steve Bozeman, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Steve-
Well, Steve and I have run many, many marathons, 50 milers.
Wow.
We've done Ironman, double Ironman together and stuff. And he's a real badass.
Yeah.
He's my favorite athlete.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did you win any awards, accommodations, medals? or anything?
I've got my, I had 3 campaign medals because I was there 2 years.
Yeah.
My Vietnam service, the one I'm most proud of and most surprised by was my good conduct medal. Cross of Gallantry, our unit got a Cross of Gallantry. And national defense, I think there's 7 or 8 of them, but I have to look at my DD-214 and tell you what they are.
Yeah.
All right. So what is your career after the military at that point in time?
Well, I only wanted to be 2 things in my life. I started out, I wanted to be a farmer, but I knew that wasn't going to work out because I didn't like the frozen ground in Iowa 6 months of the year. And I love Virginia, so I thought about law enforcement.
Okay.
And I ended up taking a physical for it, and the doctor cut me some slack because this ear was trashed.
Uh-huh.
And I got the job, and I policed for 25 years.
And you were
Lynchburg.
City of Lynchburg. Okay. Would Bennett be the captain then, or
Bennett was my chief, my last chief.
chief? Yeah.
Bob was a great chief, probably
Yes.
probably my favorite chief.
Legend.
When Chuck was over dealing with the heads of state in Europe, I was in Afghanistan, Iraq, and we'd go back and forth. What are you doing, man? Oh, I just had some instant go with the president of Swahili land or something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
But he's a great man, good leader.
Yeah. He was wonderful. So you spent 25 years there. So how do you end up back? How does this happen?
I believe, and I've always tried to tell all the young officers, do your career, do the 25 years. And while you're there, go to as many schools as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go. I became a hostage negotiator. You know, we do command and control. We do tactical. I was on the first SWAT team and advanced tactical. And then you take combat lifesaver, you know, and that kind of stuff. Well, all that stuff, along with your weapons quals, you know, and I think my last 16 years I shot hundreds day and night, spring and fall. All that comes into it, plus my Marine Corps combat history. And I get a call from a guy who was my rookie at the police department. He said, there's a unit, a company, it's well known, and they're going to call this year 2005, the year of the police. Come over here on a mentor, monitor, and advise program. When you've got boots on the ground, let me know. There's some things I want to do with you. So I didn't like the company I worked for, and I'm going to tell you who they were. Just a bunch of egotistical fools that had inflated their resumes and didn't know the first thing about combat. So as soon as I got away from them, I ended up in Mosul. Well, nobody was going out on the street with the military, no civilians. And I said, well, if all I'm going to do is to train Iraqi police, I'm going to do the best job I can. And so I started 32 guys had gone to what's called Gyptic in Jordan and had basic police school. And they showed up, and they were some of the smartest and the brightest of those guys. And next thing I know, I'm talking to a Special Forces commander. I get a call from this police officer I told you that I trained. He's in Iraq, up in northern Iraq. He's up in Erbil. And next thing I know, I'm embedded with Special Forces.
Wow.
And so together we've continued to train. And the reason that I ended up is not because I'm all that in a box of chips. It just was the fact that I had a real quantifiable and real resume.
Yeah.
And I could help Special Forces cleaning rooms and a firearms instructor and this, that. And it was just a marriage made in heaven. I mean, I love those guys. I worked with 4 teams, and I stay in contact with them now.
Wow.
And they are consummate professionals when it comes to blowing doors and going after bad guys. And we did in Mosul and Talifar over 600 explosive entries.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
So Mosul, and you had told me when I met you about the movie Mosul, and I watched it. And I guess, my first question is, and what your thoughts are, and this really has nothing to do with the training that you did, but just your opinion of this. When I watched the movie, one of the things that stood out to me the most is it was a land of rubble. I mean, it looked like the Lego set that you see that they just spill out there.
And it's a lot like that.
So, and it was so, I mean, to me, was it beautiful? And then this is a recent explosion, or is this 50 years of it being torn up like that?
Most of it came from, a lot of it was during the battle in 03, 04, 05. And you can see all the pockmarks. This is the second biggest city in the country.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's 2.7 million people, 16,000 police. But you can see all the damage to the vehicles. And you can see what's amazing is these traffic circles, how little concrete is left around those traffic circles because they put so many IEDs out over the 2 or 3 years. It's just incredible. But ISIS came in, the very first thing they did was they blew down Jonah's tomb, which is in Mosul. Then they blew the famous gates of Nineveh down, trying to make a fashion statement to the people. Then they butchered a lot of the population in some gross and inhumane ways, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So you're right, it is. It's just a nightmare. They went in to establish their dominance. They would literally go down the street, and I've got the videos. Well, I gave them up. I don't want them anymore. Any of my computers. Just shooting in family cars, just killing people, just shooting and killing. Pushing boys. They had 5-ton trucks pushing boys, taking them up to the sand where Uday and Kusa used to have their harem, shoot them in the back of the head, push them in the Tigris. Literally, it was the Red Sea up there. And their brutality was unbelievable.
Yeah.
That and the fact that they took 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old child brides. Those types of things that America can't really wrap their head around.
Right.
But that is the difference between radical Islam and moderate. Moderate is a whole different ballgame. Yeah.
So when you're breaking down these doors, what are you looking for at that point in time?
Well, we've evolved a little bit since the Lynchburg Police Department. We take a little bit of C4 and a det cord and an IV bottle, and we paste it all together, stick it on a sticky pad, and then we roll it up. We quietly set up our order of movement. We dismount. We infill on foot. We push our guys over the wall. We go to the door. We're going to blow, and you stick that sticky thing on the door. Then you hook a shock cord to it. When that goes off, that IV bottle shrinks the center of the metal door, and all 4 corners come in. Blow the doors off. It's called a water impulse charge. That's an explosive breach. Inside, you've got a ballistic breach with a breaching shotgun, and then you also have a mechanical breach. We didn't do any mechanical breaches. We blew the doors because we wanted them to be really scared when we came through that smoke.
So when you bust through or blow through the doors, are you looking for people, bad guys at that point, or are you trying to get intel?
Well, a target package is a lot more than that.
Okay, it's a
You're
target
going
package.
for specific individuals.
Gotcha.
One of the proudest missions we did, we got Muhammad Yunus, who had killed 6 of our guys with a sniper rifle. And it was a big deal. You go after an individual, You meet with your ground and air assets. Everybody sits in on the briefings, the primary briefing, and then the briefing before we actually go out that night. Everybody knows the role. And we go up with the Blackhawks, and we take pictures of the blocks around the objective, and we number them. So if we take fire from 32, and we're at number 1, the objective, we could actually laze it with our green beams, and then our air support just rains heck down on them, man.
Gotcha.
Now, how old are you at this time? I mean, what age range are you at this time?
Went over there at 56.
So I'm 55. I was hot today because from my office to my truck.
Well,
Holy cow.
55 was, it depends on what kind of 55 you are.
Yeah, well, I'm not that kind.
If you go over there, and you look like this when you're 62.
Yeah, I don't look like that.
Okay. Well,
Don't show that to Emma.
no.
All right, so I'm curious. At this point, you're a contract. How what do you describe yourself as that then? You're working with Special Forces, but you're
I'm a contractor.
contractor.
But I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy that builds the roads.
No, yeah, I get it.
And I'm a contractor, but what I say a tactical contractor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there to train, but I'm also, what happened was once we got these guys trained, every so often the SF guys are going home.
Yeah,
So I got to take over the team and hold the team
sure,
and kind of make the transfer from the next team seamless.
sure.
Show them where the bad guys are in neighborhoods. Now I become the SWAT team commander,
Yeah,
and which is right here. And I have to take care of those guys. I have to feed them,
yeah.
make sure they got water, make sure they got the best equipment, and I gave them the best equipment. And we actually activated asset forfeiture, which is a form I got from the Lynchburg Police Department. And we took the LPD heading off, and we put Special Forces, whichever team we were with. And when I would get calls from Rotary, we got guys trying to go through the point entry, and they don't want to be caught. When we get in the Blackhawks, go out, and we stop them, jump out on them. Like the first 2 times, we got 2 Iveco trucks with 2 5-ton trucks full of American cigarettes. So we took them up to a bazaar up in the Hook, where it's safe, where the Kurds are. I came back with $384,000. I gave 10% to the Special Forces team on a credit card.
Yeah.
30% to brigade. I kept the rest of it for my guys. So my guys didn't have raggedy equipment.
Yeah.
I had great weapon systems, 300 Win Mags, thermals, silencers, all that stuff. But we regularly did that, and when we would capture somebody, we would take everything they owned, and we take it up to the bazaar and we sell it. And that way the American public did not have to fund this team.
Yeah.
Wow.
So these are Iraqis that you're training, trying to keep their country from ISIS. Is that essentially it?
No, this is from ISIS is after me.
Okay. All right.
ISIS is probably 4 iterations after me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And we're dealing with, we made a big mistake, our country did, in saying that, people that worked in the Ba'ath Party couldn't have anything to do with the government, and a lot of the people that were in the military could no longer have anything to do with the government. How many millions of people you put out there trained to fight, and now they don't have a job and they can't feed their families?
That's a good point. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping in with some questions, but I can't
Well, I'm
help
curious.
but thinking.
Is it normal to have a contract work with Special Forces, or is this an abnormal situation?
I would say it's abnormal.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, the first time I met General Petraeus, because of operational security, I didn't know he was coming in. And anyway, a buddy of mine came over and said, "Hey, they want you to eat with the colonel tonight." So I went in there and I saw this first sergeant working the door, and I said, "What did you do?" First sergeant don't work the door to mess on. He laughed. He was a friend of mine. Everybody calls me Pops. That was my name. Most of these people don't know. I have any idea what my name is, even the closest guys. And I walk in, and there's Maliki, the president. There's Salah. There's Wathick. And they're sitting at a table this way, facing forward. The head table up there has got Command Sergeant Major, I can't remember his last name, Petraeus. It's got my SF regional commander, Sam Fields, my captain at that time, and there's my name up there. I said, what is this all about? I hope I'm not in any trouble. But he actually took me aside and he asked me, he said, why don't you come down to Baghdad and train and teach people to do what you do, because you're the guy pretty much done. And I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't do good around the flagpole. And I said, well, I thought his Command Sergeant Major was going to kill me. I said, no, I don't want to do that. And I said, but understand, and Petraeus thought it was funny. He kind of chuckled. I said, I can't teach people from a podium. I can't observe them. I can't certify them. When I've got to have them go through a door with me, with the bad guys, and watch me do it enough times. Then I'll turn my team over to them. I'll have oversight.
Yeah.
And then they learn to do what I do. Then I'll certify and send them to you. He thought that was a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
But no, to answer your question, very few people. There were few people.
Sure.
I never expected to live with them.
Right.
I was with them all the time, training, and they loved my guys. It was really funny how much they liked my guys.
Are they speaking Persia or Persian? What do they speak? And how
Farsi.
Farsi. How are you able to get over that?
I have this awesome interpreter
Oh.
who was an Egyptian. His name is Amir Banoub. He'd been an American citizen for 12 years. Emir couldn't hit that wall with a rifle. He was quite possibly the worst shot I've ever seen.
But you haven't met Brian.
Really?
Hunting season.
Well, as it turns out, I got him a big old beautiful cold steel knife, which would come back to bite me in the tail later. But Emir translated for me. And because of his age, like my age, he was my age. Arabs respect age. And most of my guys would call me grandfather or something. It didn't bother me. And my favorite one would call me daddy, But that interaction between the SF guys, they'd come over to I had a compound built just for the team.
Yeah.
4 towers up there with belt feds, 4 fighting positions to get to it because everybody hated my guys.
Yeah.
They're bad boys. My guys from Special Forces, we'd drive over there and play volleyball with them. We'd eat with them. Well, and I'll tell you something that really struck several people. It didn't strike me too much. But before we go out, we take turns. Just thanking the Lord for deliverance. Please bring us back in one piece. Nobody gets harmed. Let's do our job, do the mission, bring everybody home safe. And we come back in and somebody would say, thank you, Lord, for deliverance. And everybody, hoorah, and off we go. Well, the Arabs were so impressed by that. They came to me and said, Pops, can we pray with you?
Oh, wow, man.
So we let them get into the circle of our SF guys, and they would pray first, and then we would pray. 2 totally different religions,
That's beautiful.
And it was. And Big Osama, no relation to Bin Laden, was a great big guy. He had 16 5E feet. He had never worn shoes. He had sandals. So one day I convinced him I wanted to outline his foot. And I told him, I'm going to make a set of wooden shoes for you. And then I went on ahead and I took to his space with my team logo on it, and I sent it to Danner Boots. They made me 2 pair of boots free of charge.
Oh, my goodness.
You ought to have seen those things. They were boats. Well, he's just a great big guy. He'd literally sit there and cried to put those boots on. I got a bunch of Thurlow socks for him, too. And he said, look, I have boots. I have boots. And boy, he was, when I would stay with my guys, which is not really smart, and not sleep with my SF team, every once in a while, I'd ease on over there. They'd PSD me over there. And I had a room up there. And my room had a bed and a table and my computer and everything. And I was in constant contact with SF. They were 15 minutes away. Big Osama would lay with his back against my door, and my hinges are inbound. on his mattress with his rifle. To get to me, they had to get through him.
Jeez.
People talk about the lack of camaraderie between the Arabs and the soldiers. You just don't know the Arabs. And when you actually sit down and talk to them, you literally become part of their family. When you're feeding their wife and children, when they get married, they give them money. They don't want ribbons. They don't want medals. They want money. Barakat, Hamish, Sergeant Sadi, all three got shot. We got ambushed. Hamish was laying there. We're blowing the windows out of this little compound. Barakat goes out and grabs Hamish. He's dragging him backwards. He brings his rifle up to shoot at this guy in this far left corner window. The guy shoots him through the rear receiver of his rifle. If you're familiar with an AK, there's a release block that's pressured in there. You lift that and your receiver comes out. Shot him right through it. I've got that at home, by the way.
Wow.
Barakat drops to one knee, takes Hamish's rifle, shoots the guy in the window, and then drags Hamish back down to me. And I had some frags. And he kept trying to tell me, Amir says, give him the frags, give him the frags. So he's shot. Not badly, but he's got pieces. He goes up and throws the frags through the windows.
Wow.
You know,
Tough.
When you do stuff, he's a Kurd.
Yeah.
And the Kurds are
They were tough.
as
Yeah,
nails.
tough. Yeah.
When you do stuff for those guys, when you show them you care about them, you can sit down as a Christian and you can talk to them. But you don't want to do that unless you're really close to them because it offends them.
Yeah.
But we would go through things like, Pops, what do you know? What do you know about my people? I said, what do you want to know?
Yeah.
I said, Abraham had a wife. Her name was Sarah. She couldn't conceive. He gave her a handmaid Hagar. He had Ishmael. Oh, Ishmael, yeah. They're going crazy. Right?
Yeah.
And I said, and then they went fussing back and forth like they're going to do, 2 wives and a child. And God promised her that their children would be like the sands of the earth and the seas of the earth. And off they go. I said, why do you hate the Jews? I said, you have the same father, Abraham. He's buried in Iraq. And they think about that. But they've been told there is no Holocaust.
Yeah.
Well, they've been lied to by everybody, so
Yeah.
they don't really know.
So I'm curious, just for my own curiosity. I'm a fan or listen to John McPhee. Did you ever come cross paths with the guy? I guess it was named Sheriff of Baghdad for his special forces stuff over there. I was just curious if y'all crossed paths.
No, we stayed up in Mosul. None of us wanted to go down to Baghdad. There's
Yeah.
too many stars down there. You know.
That makes sense.
Do you see Mosul ever? I mean, when I look at these cities, when I look at Gaza and I look at Lebanon, when I look at these cities of rubble, I wonder: is there hope? Are those people? Are their foundations good enough that it could be built back? Can it ever be built back?
It can be built back. The actual mechanics of building a building can be built back, and they can have a structured government. But you're always going to have the tribal difficulties between the Shias, the Kurds, the Sunnis, and you're going to have that. That's in their lineage, and they're always going to try to work together to the point where they can come out on top.
Yeah.
And it's just they've been that way their entire life.
Yeah.
They can rebuild, but you'll always have that issue going on.
Well, I wonder in a city of 2.7 million, I mean, they built it at one time. They had those things up, and it just doesn't. I just wonder, when did it all start looking like that?
Well,
Can it recover?
I guess what you got to worry about is who's in charge of who's in charge.
Yeah.
And Saddam was unbelievably brutal. He had a castle. We took his castle, and we used it for our headquarters.
Yeah.
Beautiful, unbelievable, gorgeous mosaics and marbles, just extraordinary. And the people are out there going through plastic looking for some kind of little food in it, And Uday and Qusay, they just did whatever they wanted. They raped, they murdered, they did anything they wanted. And the people despised them. When we killed them, they actually made a dump site where their house was. And but then again, it's based upon, was Saddam good to you or was he not good to you?
Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned before we came on air, you mentioned rescuing or saving a wealthy person's daughter. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, we didn't do a lot of things in daytime. A few things. We did all our target packages at night, but occasionally we had to go out for different things. And I can't remember which team this was. I think it was my second team, 71. We were traveling parallel to the Tigris River, and we called it Route Lexus. It was a code name for it. We had routes named for vehicles and stuff. And a white ASV crossed over from two lanes and hit our ASV and blew up. And it was a suicide bomber. Well, it spun it sideways, but it didn't hurt any of our guys. But when we dismounted, we could see people were injured. Two adult mothers were dead.
Oh.
A child was dead. One child was wounded in her torso. And I got to a little girl, and she had a yellow sundress on. And she was missing pretty much everything above her knee and a big chunk of her calf out of her right leg. And I'm just a simple combat lifesaver. I'm not a medic.
Mm-hmm.
But I know enough about skin and deer is how the femoral artery works.
Mm-hmm.
And we had talked many times about this, the medics and stuff, trying to update us and give us a hand. So first time I put a tourniquet on, she's still bleeding. So I have to go farther up. And again, she's still bleeding. Next time it comes up, it starts dribbling. Well, I can see something, and I realize when I clean it off, it's her femoral. So I take a hemostat, and I pull it, well, it comes out in pieces. Go a little bit farther, same thing happened. The third time out, it comes this hole. So I put another hemostat on it, clamp them down, and put blood stoppers on it, wrap it real good, and deal with her calf. I told the medic, and he agreed. He said she won't make it because if she goes to the El Jabri Hospital in Mosul, that's a slaughterhouse. And I felt such a pretty little girl, cute as a button. She was about 9, maybe 10.
Oh.
So we fast forward a few months, and we get a call through Brigade. Brigade wants to talk to me and the captain, and we go down and we talk. Sheikh Abdullah, who controls all the points of entry into Iraq, is the uncle to this little girl. And he was able to find out which team, and then also inevitably who it was that passed her up. So we end up going out in the desert, 4-hour trip, on the most miserable trip of my life. 2 of my guys in the back seat, 2 of my operators, heat exhaustion, passed out. It was so hot. It was so hot that I took my Nomex gloves off and touched my rifle, and it burnt my hands.
Wow.
So I pulled a round out of the chamber, dropped the mag and everything. Same thing with my handgun. I got the other guys in the other vehicles do the same thing. And then we had to take these guys out and deal with them. Well, that's definitely a story for off the air. And make sure that they were hydrated. And then we went to this guy's, all I can say, it was just an oasis palace. It was this huge, thick-walled, heavily machine gun, turrets on top with this great big thick gate, big gears and stuff. And the closer you get to it, you see these pipes coming out of the ground. That's his irrigation pipes going to his, I don't know what other than Oasis guys. And they open the gate and we come through and we get out and we take our body armor out and we throw it in the trunk, our battle helmets out, lock our weapons in the trunk, just take our sidearms with us. And this guy comes out and he just introduces himself. He has an American interpreter there. Of course, Amir's with me. And then his brother comes out, and his brother wants to find me, and he starts crying. And, she was sent to Austria. I keep saying Switzerland, but she was sent to Austria, flew her right out of the country and saved her life,
Wow.
So we spent several days there. I got to watch him fly falcons, and he had beautiful Arabian horses. He had butlers and waiters and the most beautiful gardens you've ever seen. God, it was gorgeous. And then, of course, we had to go back to the crap hole of both.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, before we get you out of here, because we do appreciate you coming in, we always finish off our interviews with a question. If you could pick anybody in history, who would you pick to spend 24 hours with, and where would you spend with them?
Well, that's absolutely no problem, man. So that Jesus up in heaven, that's where I want to be.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Well, you're listening to Life, Liberty, Happiness and their American Hero Stories, Marine Corps Vietnam veteran Gregory Meacham. Thank you.